Senatorial District. Mr. Nominee, let me first of all congratulate you for coming this far in your chosen career and profession, which is journalism, I believe. Mr. Nominee, if I could recall, there was a bill that was brought into this chamber in the 9th Senate, which has to do with regulation and the supervision of social media. Some people were for this bill, while others were vehemently against it. Should this country be opportune to get you appointed by Mr. President as Minister of Information, how do you intend to reconcile these two positions? Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Cyril Fasui.
Good afternoon, Senate President sitting as chair, distinguished colleagues. My name is Cyril Fasui, Ekiti North, the fountain of knowledge. Standing before you is a nominee from this fountain of knowledge, a very loyal, dependable, and responsible ally of the current president, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. We call the nominee Ajiroba. The meaning of Ajiroba is one that waits to see the king. Standing before you is Ajiroba Dele Alake, very responsible, very dependable. We will open him up to any question you want to ask. Sorry, because we know he's a responsible and is intelligent, ready to answer any question. And without much ado, I want us to know that this Senate will do Mr. President a lot of good by approving his nomination to be one of the ministers of Nigeria. Thank you.
So in other words, the distinguished Senator Cyril Fasui from Ekiti. Ekiti senators have no objection and they have no question to ask him. So in that case, let's concentrate on those who have questions that can enlighten Nigerians. Distinguished Senator Mongunu.
Distinguished Senate President, distinguished senators, my name is Mohamed Tahir Munguno. I represent Borno North Senatorial District. Mr. Nominee, congratulations. I've gone through your resume and also the struggles you made towards actualization of the June 12th mandate. I want to equally recall with nostalgia that I am part and parcel of the activists as a young man and a member of the House of Representatives. The late Chief MKO Abiola recruited about 3 of us to go to Cyprus to represent Nigeria as true representative of the people, not to allow Shonekon to go there as the head of Nigeria, but being true representative of the people. He paid for our fees to go. In fact, I'm traveling out of the country for the first time, first class. That time, we went to Cyprus to represent Nigeria, but unfortunately, we could not be allowed to attend the venue of the conference. We are not admitted, and we came back to Nigeria, just to show that I am part and parcel of the struggle for the actualization of the June 12th mandate. Well, my question is, there is a need for paradigm shift towards value reorientation in this country. Value reorientation in the sense that there is a need to make, more especially our young ones, to be patriotic, to be nationalistic in their outlook and thinking, and to think Nigeria first, the value of discipline in all our national endeavors, and what have you. And then the agency that is charged with the responsibility of carrying out that mandate is the National Orientation Agency. Throughout my stay in the House of Representatives, I was privileged to have a glance at the budget of the National Orientation Agency. And their budget is not enough to carry out such a very sensitive responsibility that they have been charged to undertake. So, parabencho, looking at your resume, if Mr. President in his wisdom deems it fit to assign you the Ministry of Information and National Orientation, what steps are you going to take towards having a paradigm shift for the purpose of value reorientation in this country? That is my question. Thank you.
The distinguished Senator Nengi.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Abdul Ningi, and I represent Bauchi Central of Bauchi State. Let me welcome Mr. Dele Alake to this hallowed chamber. And I would like to say, personally, I thought Dele Alake is one of the very best appointee of this government, and I thought he is doing an excellent job in the villa. And for me, Dele Alake is a fresh breath of air. As a spokesman, I don't see him as an attack dog journalist, neither do I see him as a hawk. Mr. President, if I were the president of this nation, I would have allowed Dele Alake to continue to be his spokesman. But I'm not the president, so I have no choice. Having said that, I would like to refer to you, Dele, to our Constitution, 1999 Constitution, as amended. Clause 88, sub A and B. And I would like to, by the leave of the Senate President, to quickly read through. Now it says, subject to the provision of the Constitution, each house of the National Assembly shall have powers by resolution published in its journal and in the Gazette of the Federal Government of the Federation to direct or calls to be directed on an investigation, one, on any matter, and the catchword is on any matter, or things with respect to which the powers to make laws, and then B, the conduct of affairs of any person, and the catchword there is any person, authority, ministry or government, department, charged or intended to be charged with the duty of or responsibility of. I quickly rise to make those, to call those phrases of the Constitution, because in the last 2 decades or so, particularly the minister of the government, and particularly the head of NDS, do not understand this. Neither do they appreciate it, neither probably they don't know. So as someone who is going to attend to federal executive meetings, because of your knowledge, your disposition, what will you say about these particular clauses? Several times here, the National Assembly called on ministers and head of NDS. Some of them deliberately turned this thing down. As a matter of fact, they don't see themselves as being respectable to this institution. And that's why I take time to make it to you that it is important to address these matters once you are past here and then the president appoints you as a minister. So what do you take these things for? How do you understand it? That is the question.
Distinguished Senator Tambua.
Mr. President, sitting as chair, my colleagues, let me join my colleagues that have spoken earlier than me in congratulating Egbon Dele Alake for your nomination to serve as Minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And from your narration and the rendition you gave us of your journey and struggles in the development of our democracy, I can see that you have, to some extent, shared struggle, political struggle, and ideals, and possibly even coming from the same camp with the immediate past Minister of Information, Alhaji Lai Mohammed. What would you do differently from Alhaji Lai Mohammed, assuming you are tasked with the portfolio of Minister of Information of the Federal Republic of Nigeria? Thank you.
I hope the nominee is taking record of the questions. Distinguished Senator Ismaila Kawu.
Thank you, Mr. President, my dear respected colleague. I am Suleiman Abdurrahman Kawu Sumaila, representing Kano South Senatorial District. Mr. President, my dear colleague, I don't want to repeat myself, but I quite agree with the previous speakers congratulating the nominee, and thank you, Mr. President, of nominating one of the best hand, which I think he will, if he became the Minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, more officially his area, he will add value to the Nigerian development or political development system. But I have a simple question to ask. Listening to you attentively and going through your resume, I cherish your struggle during June 12. Now, inshallah, you will be the member of Federal Executive Council soon. My only question or clarification, which I need from you is, how do you intend to what we perceive as injustice meted by our beloved Alhaji Bashir Usman Topa led and his vice presidential candidate, Chief Sylvester Ogu, who contested alongside with the MKO, led MKO Abiola in 1993. The last administration honor led Chief MKO Abiola and Babagana Kingibe was the highest national order, national honor of the land. But despite the contribution of Alhaji Bashir Usman Topa led and Chief Sylvester Ogu, who contested alongside with Abiola, although the vice presidential candidate of Chief Abiola abandoned the struggle, joined the military, but the last administration honored him with the second national honor of the land, abandoned Alhaji Bashir Usman Topa and Chief Sylvester Ogu. Will you support me if I propose a bill to the National Assembly to, as a member of Federal Executive Council, will you support us to address that? No, I know what I'm saying. I know what I'm saying. Will you support the proposal to address that injustice meted to us? I from Kano, who represent Alhaji Bashir Usman Topa, and of course our nationalist Chief Sylvester Ogo. Thank you.
The last question should have been directed to our colleagues in the Senate, that if a proposal relating to a bill comes up, whether our colleagues will support. But for national honors, he was, from his narration, he was only in the June 12th struggle alongside the current president. He wasn't the prime mover of June 12th struggle. And he's not in a position to give anybody national honor. Senator Abiru.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, sitting as the chair, and my distinguished colleagues. First, I would like to congratulate the nominee, described as the Ajiroba, as described by my colleague, Senator Cyril Fasri. That's Ajiroba Dele Alake. I want to congratulate him on his nomination as a minister of the, as a potential minister of the Federal Republic. And I also want to say that I was very much engrossed with his sense of history when he was making his presentation, and I fully support his nomination as well. And I also like to thank the President of the Federal Republic for giving us one of the best that we can find in journalism, an accomplished personality that we have right in front of us. Now, having been part of history, particularly in the last 40 years, and the evolution of our democracy, even at the point where it was terminated, and of course, when it continued. What I would like to put across is for the nominee to share with us that how do we continue to, continue to protect and guard the democracy that has come to stay in Nigeria in particular,
really is that for a very long time, we have studied that Ministry of Information in most cases is a cost center. Most of the budget, they spend and spend and spend with little or no revenue. Even the NTA that was supposed to be rebranded has not been able to give us much in terms of competition with the private television station. Now I want to ask, your ministry will take over information, the likelihood, if you are Minister of Information and Tourism. Tourism is a very large industry. And I believe that Nigeria as a nation, because of our peculiarity, because of our cultural value, because of our natural endowment, can survive on tourism. My senatorial district is an example. We have a lot of fantastic sites. The tallest waterfall in the whole of West Africa is in my senatorial district. We have a very large heritage, a museum, they say museum, which is a world-renowned museum. Equally too, we have a lot of shelter rocks and many interesting sites. I want to know if by luck, by chance, you are in charge of this ministry, what are you going to bring to the table to make Nigeria earn money from tourism? Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Nominee, that is the first major serious question. It asks you on the area of tourism. And if you are given the opportunity in the Ministry of Information, what will you do to improve the internally generated revenue of this country through tourism because of the various tourist sites across the country? I think you should start from that answer, then you now go down to the rest.
Thank you, distinguished President of the Senate. Thank you, distinguished senators. Actually, I was following the pattern of the questions very meticulously, and in my trade, I'm a writer and I'm a journalist. When we write with inspiration and conviction, but we build our thoughts before we write, so that the thoughts will be logical, will be sequential. And that's why, Mr. President,
Somebody touches his mic.
distinguished senators, actually the issue of tourism in Nigeria, with due deference to the opinion of the Senate President, has been very difficult. It's not difficult in my own estimated view at all, and in my considered opinion. And this I say with all sense of responsibility, given my modest global. We need to examine the factors that contribute to enhancing tourism in any milieu. What are those factors? The very first one is security. Adequate security. We cannot talk of any meaningful development of tourism without security. It is when there is security that the economic development flourishes. And tourism is a factor, if not a variable of economic development. So holistically, security is a sine qua non for any kind of development in any sphere of a society. My distinct and the greatest or largest waterfall in West Africa. However, even for domestic tourists, there has to be peace of mind before you can decide to visit. Well, you must be fed adequately, you must have a means of livelihood before tourism. Tourism is tertiary factor of economic development. It's not the primary for a human being. A human being who wants to go and visit the waterfall, who wants to go and watch animals, who wants to do tourism generally, see sites, historical sites, must have been a little bit fed. And there must be security of movement assured. Elsewhere in the world, where people gravitate for tourism, there is a modicum of security. When you know that your lives and properties are secured, then you can go and watch animals in the bush. You can go to the Masai Mara in Kenya, into the Games Reserve, and watch animals and sleep in the bush because there is a feeling of security. So, distinguished senators, the first thing we must attack in enhancing tourism is internal national security. There's no running away from it. Of course, there is the value chain, the multiplier effect. Therefore, it affects virtually every area of our endeavor in this country. There are other factors, but I just don't want to waste your time. The most important, in my considered view, is security. I would hesitate before going anywhere to engage in tourism if I do not feel safe. And you agree with me, in the last several years, we've not had the best feeling of security. However, now we are having it. Yes, sir.
We have noted your concern on security. But if you are appointed a Minister of Information, and then we collectively, because security belongs to all, and we put our house in order, and the nation is secured, what are the initiatives you bring forward to enhance tourism, assuming we also have done something about security, please?
Thank you, Mr. President. I did say that there are other factors, but that the most important, which is the foundation, that's why I hammered on it. Now, when that foundation is laid, and we all know that when you are even building construction, once your foundation is solid, the rest is putting the building blocks. Now, those other factors are the building blocks. For instance, we need to put infrastructure around those tourism sites. It is important for any tourist, whether local or foreign, to have access even to the tourism sites. Take Ikogosi in Ekiti, for instance. If there is no very good access roads, it will be difficult for us to attract any. And let me also say here, Mr. President, that no matter the amount of advertisement and publicity you wrap around any other venture, if the most important ingredient of success for that venture is not treated, the advert and publicity will be a waste. That is why, in my time, when our present governor was, present president was governor of Lagos State, I was his commissioner for information and strategy. And that is why we brought the issue of strategy into information management. It is not just information management per se. However, I'll come to that later. So if we are able to put in the right infrastructure, electricity, access roads, the personnel that they will even service those tourism ventures. These are all important, and I'm sure I don't need to tell you that you've been all over the world to tourism sites. You've seen the courteous nature of the tourism personnel or the site personnel. They need training. We have to bring training on board for all our tourism ventures and sites. We have to put in the infrastructure. Infrastructure is not just the roads. I also mentioned the electricity, even the structures, even those sites, the way we design the sites. There's one place in...
So now you have mentioned the things that need to be done for tourism to work. But you have not mentioned the initiatives that you are going to bring to bear, because you are not the one that will do the infrastructure. You propose those things to the Federal Executive Council. Please attempt to answer the question of distinguished Senator Tambua and distinguished Senator Nengi, if you noted them down, so that we can now look at your colleagues, no, not your colleagues, we can look at your senators from Ekiti, Adaramodu, and the Senate leader, so that way, yes, I notice that if you notice the way I'm going, I would like a situation whereby we have a spread. So we have this is minority leader. Your protest is noted. Okay, so just answer the other questions from my colleagues. Distinguished Senator Nengi, distinguished Senator Tambua. Well, because if you notice, I attempted to go towards Ekiti, but most of the speeches coming from there are full of accolades instead of questions. So I'm more interested in those who have questions for him. He wants to answer questions. He wants to answer questions.
Mr. President, sir. Exactly. So I need to start from the beginning. Yes. You're talking to him. I want to address him. I don't know which ones they asked. Their names are not there. Check the front. I don't know which one Bamboo asked. I just wrote the questions. Mr. Senate President, sir, I wrote down the questions. Yes, distinguished senators, the very first question by senator from Niger State is on the national image of Nigeria, that what would we do differently if I happen to be in that ministry, and especially our foreign image and local image. Now, again, my answer is very simple. There is no foreign image that can be ever good that is not contingent on domestic policies anywhere in the world. However much we burnish our image, engaging public relations practitioners and all that, is all money down the drain. I will not recommend that for Mr. President. What I will recommend for the president of this country is to concentrate on good governance within Nigeria. And once there is good governance within Nigeria, once our domestic policies are positive and responsive and responsible, the image of Nigeria will naturally shoot up. It's a kind of interrelated. So we are not going to embark on wasting money on burnishing image, polishing our image, when the domestic situation of Nigeria is nothing home to write about. So the first thing I would recommend is that our domestic policies must be right and must be people-oriented at all times. Thank you. On the second one is the social media regulation. Yes, there is some concern, not just here, but all over the world, but particularly in our own environment, about the pernicious nature of social media or effects. The social media has two sides. There whatever happens, you get it immediately, and then you can propagate your information widely at a very short time. And other things, you communicate faster with social media. However, the downside is so detrimental to good and decent society. What I will support is the strengthening of regulations. In my time as a journalist and as an editor for 10 years unbroken in this country, I discovered that there are laws that guide our conduct in every area of human endeavor. But the application of these laws have been short. In fact, even victims of libel cases, of aspersions, of defamation and all kinds of negative things in the media hesitate to also apply the law against the culprits. I have been on the editor's chair for several years, and the most important point to an editor is to avoid litigation, but the receiving public may not know it. But the public would not also seize the opportunity of applying the full weight of the law when there is infraction by any medium, whether social media or newspaper or online or electronic. So I will recommend a strengthening of our regulations and application of those regulations. It is not just to enact laws, but the laws must also be tested. It is from testing that we know the weight, the efficacy, proficiency, and efficiency of those regulations. So that's the first thing I would do about social media, strengthening of the laws and application of those regulations. And I will support anything that comes from these hallowed chambers to promote that course of action. If there are laws, if there are motions, bills in line with this, please be sure of our full cooperation. Value or reorientation of our society. That is very, very weighty. And I agree with the distinguished senator that asked that question. In the days gone by, when some of us were very young and we were toddlers, we used to say that, we say these days that Nigeria had seen it better, it was better in our days and all of that. But Nigeria hasn't changed in terms of geography, in terms of nomenclature. The sun still rises in the east and sets in the west. So what has gone wrong? It is the character of the inhabitants of the nation called Nigeria that has changed tremendously. And how it is the value system that has been desecrated by successful generations. I will not say the government, the legislature, the judiciary. No. It is us in totality as a society, as human beings. Because when we say leadership, we are all leaders at various levels, either at government level, in the executive, legislature, judiciary, even at the state level, local government, even at family levels, which is the most important unit of a society, the family unit. There's always a leader in the family. How has that leader inculcated the right values down the throats of the children? This is where we must start value reorientation from. It is not just regulations and laws. No, it is the attitude we bring to bear on it. So I will support serious attitudinal change. And we are going to, if I find myself in office that is responsible for value reorientation, the first thing that we will face is attitudinal change from top to bottom. Everybody. Executive obedience to legislative oversight, which was asked by the distinguished senator there. I believe in the separation of powers. I did not take part in the struggle for democracy for several years for nothing. Now that we have had the democracy, we must guard it jealously. One of the bases of guarding democracy jealously is strict adherence to rule of law and therefore separation of powers. When the legislature is saddled with the power to oversight or to perform oversight functions, all the other arms of government must necessarily obey. So I do not see, and I cannot justify how anybody in the executive will disobey calls from the legislature, either to explain something or to rub minds or to even exhaustively discuss issues concerning all of us. I am a strict adherent to the rule of law and the observance of the separation of powers. I support that fully. To Tofa and Ugo's national honors that a distinguished senator also asked.
Let me invite the minority leadership to ask the question.
Mr. President, my name is Simon Watkon. I'm from Plateau State, and I represent Plateau North. Mr. Nominee, a lot of accolades have been showered on you, and from your CV, you have done incredibly well for Nigeria, especially the struggle for democracy. And I'm convinced virtually every senator here knows that. Seated as senators here, the issue of our political parties is secondary. We are senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I'm saying this because of the question I want to ask you. And therefore, any question coming from me should be taken that is coming from the Senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, not as a minority party senator. We all have equal status here. Like I did tell the Senate President, one day he may be seated here and I'll be there. My question is that I heard you, sir. You said as a writer or as a journalist or an image maker, you speak out of inspiration and conviction. You don't just say anything. You must have the inspiration and you must have been convinced that what you are saying is the right thing. You've talked about the social media too. I've read on social media, sir, your statement concerning other political parties during the election. I read a statement where you labeled supporters of a particular presidential candidate as wild dogs, buying blood on social media. Have you come across that statement? Are you aware of it? Did you say that? If you didn't say that, excuse me, sir. Let me say that. I've not.
The minority leader, two things. Number one, you say one day that you will come and sit here. And then and then I'll come and sit there. But you have forgotten that I sat there before I came here. That's number one. Then number two, to try and avoid campaign issues. Campaigns are over. We are now in governance. That is why once you pass through that door, you are coming into the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And you started well by pointing out that you are not asking questions on behalf of political party or on behalf of minority or majority. You are asking questions as a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That means your questions must be nationalistic and not partisan. So, but because of the fact that you are a leader, the chair continues to protect you. So go on.
Thank you, Mr. President. Secondly, sir, we know that. Yes, I'm asking another question. I've asked him whether it is true or not, so he is the one to answer, sir. Yeah, second question. The second question, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
Point of order.
Your mic. Oh.
Senator Muhammad Adamu Aliru is my name, representing Kebbi Central. Mr. President, Order 55, with your permission, I will read. When a senator is speaking, no senator may converse aloud or take any noise or make any noise or disturbance to interrupt him. Mr. President, there are so many interruptions, particularly from the other side. I want you to abstain this point of order so that there will be silence and decorum in the way you conduct the affairs of this chamber. Thank you.
The point of order is sustained. The leader of the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Michael Okoyemi Bamidele, representative Central. I have come under Order 12, Order 55 specifically, Order 12. And it's important that this is stated. No senator may interrupt another senator while speaking, unless, and that's my emphasis, unless 12A, to call attention to a point of order or privilege and suddenly arising. 2, to call attention to the want of a quorum. C, to call attention to the presence of stranger. D, to move a closure motion or to move that the business of the day be called on. Mr. President, the reason I also had to raise this point of order is that Order 55 from subsection 1 to 12 are clear as to the code, the mode of debate on the floor. And while a senator must be listened to in silence and no other senator must interrupt him, our order also, our rules have made arrangement or provisions for situations in which even a standing senator, a sitting senator, may be interrupted. That is stated in our rules. The issue at stake was that the minority leader was raising questions that bordered on campaign. This had happened several months ago.
And if we are here as senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria screening ministerial nominees, we are not supposed to bring in issues that had come and gone. Political parties contest under tension. Thank you, sir.
The Leader of the Senate, your point of order is upheld. The distinguished Senator Darlington Wokucha, you are to make your contribution. Please go ahead and make your contribution because you addressed your hand. You have another question? You have another question? Or if you have another question, please go ask very quickly because we have other nominees to take. Please ask quickly.
Mr. President, Mr. Nominee, sir, as somebody that will be the image maker if you are eventually appointed by Mr. President as Information Minister of this country, we know that out of patriotism, we are supposed to be conversant with our national anthem. Mr. President, if you allow me, I will ask the nominee to recite the second stanza of the national anthem. Thank you.
Yes, distinguished Senator Oga, not point of order, your contribution. Just ask the question, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Senate President. And dear colleagues, my name remains Darlington Nwokocha. I represent the entire Nigeria, but Abia Central in particular. Mr. Nominee, I want to welcome you to the floor, but I want to make special reference to your resume. Page 5, item 5. Mr. President, may I read? The item 5 says that you introduced the first ever Bill of Freedom of Information in Nigeria into the Lagos House of Assembly and went as far as conducting the first ever public hearing on the bill in Nigeria in 2005. That's barely 18 years ago. But I want to make reference to a certain provision in the Constitution, which I want you to take to recognize perfectly well. You have been in the media and information and communication space for decades. You may very well be familiar with Section 22 of 1999 Constitution as amended of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, to the fact that the press, the radio, television, and other agencies of the media shall at all times be free to hold government of the day to account for Nigeria people. We all witnessed how state authorities guard some media organizations in the last administration. How would the press freedom, considering that 18 years ago what you did, be guaranteed at the national space?
I actually thought you were about to give us examples of what happened in the First and Second Republic, that there were public hearings, and then you would have challenged him. But thank you for agreeing with him. Distinguished colleagues, there's the leader.
Mr. President, contrary to expectation, my point of order is not by extension of time. I will do that in another 3 minutes. My point of order, sir, is Order 52, sub 4. And the reason it's important that I make this clear is that if I have your permission to read, sir, I would like to read. Mr. President. Order 52, sub 4. A senator must confine his observations to the subject under discussion I may not introduce matter irrelevant thereto. Mr. President, it's important that we know, and I want to say this with due respect to the minority leader. He has been wonderful as a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and he has contributed very immensely to ensuring that proceedings on the floor have been meaningful. However, unfortunately, he appears to have brought politics into this thing by asking the nominee standing before us to recite any of the stanzas of the national anthem, which of course is a piece of cake. But because that had not been our tradition, and we have not done this to any of the other nominees, if I did not say this, I'm moving that question or request be expunged, because if it is not, and we rule that he will not recite it, it will look as if we had something to hide. It is irrelevant to the extent of the provisions of Order 52 sub 4, and I so move, Mr. President.
Your point of order, in fact, even if you ask me as the Senate President to recite the second stanza, I'll do it often. It is expected that every adult in Nigeria has the stanzas in his heart. Every adult. We are here to do serious business of how to move this country forward, and then to ask the nominees what they'll bring on the table to assist us to get out of the current cauldron. It is not necessarily to sing songs. So your point of order is sustained. Senator Jimikuta.
Mr. President, standing at this chair of the Committee of the Whole, my name is David Yesu Jimikuta, representing the good people of Taraba South, Kororofa Kingdom. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, having gone through
Mr. President, I rise under Order 8 sub 3 to move for an extension of time to enable the Senate sit beyond 2 p.m. so that we can finish all items on our order paper. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion moved by the Leader of the Senate. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded that these proceedings be extended beyond 2 p.m. Those in support of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Yes, Senator Jimikuta. And immediately after Senator Jimikuta, I would like to end with Ekiti. So I'll go back to either Senator Adaramodu or the Senate Leader. But the Senate Leader has spoken enough. So Senator Adaramodu, after Senator Jimikuta, you say something, then he will answer so that we can go on to the next nominee.
Thank you, Mr. President. David Jimkuta, representing the good people of Taraba South, the headquarters of Kororofa Kingdom. Mr. President, having gone through his resume, I want to beg my distinguished colleague for the nominee to take a leave of the Senate. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Adaramodu.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Mr. President, sitting as chair of the Committee of Whole. I'm Yemi Adaramodu, Senator from Ekiti South and from Ekiti State. In seconding the motion moved by my colleague, Senator Jim Kuta, that the nominee who has answered very seriously and positively and progressively the questions posed to him. Ordinarily, I'm from Ekiti State. Not only that I'm from Ekiti State, he's from the other constituency, which I even represent in this hallowed chambers, that is the media. And we can see him. He's a media legend, he's a media avatar. He has been on it for a very long time. And when we look at the resume, we will be convinced that it's going to do a human. And then we even say it, that the taste of the pudding is in the eating. In Lagos State, with our president, as he was then the governor of Lagos State, Mr. Dele Alake was the mouth, he was the trumpet that made all the human, all the feats in Lagos State to be known by Nigerians. And if we give him a bigger trumpet to blow in Nigeria, in that wise, it's going to make Nigeria very proud, and it's going to blow the feet to the world, to the global space. And finally, he's from the land of honor, Ekiti State. He's an ambassador of honor, and he's not going to renege on that. I will even put it to him that the National Orientation Agency must be revived, because go back those days when we were hearing, if you are a teacher, teach well. If you are a worker, work well. If you are a driver, drive well. So the National Orientation Agency under you, I know that is going to grow more wings this time and fly our orientation to every nook and cranny of Nigeria. Mr. President, we are very grateful from Ekiti State, and we are happy with his nomination and his screening today. And we are very sure that this hallowed chamber is going to confirm him to become a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you.
So, Mr. Nominee, Ekiti has spoken, and nobody can say that Ekiti has been marginalized in the proceedings. So, but there are still a few questions that you were itching to answer before you take leave of the Senate. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Senate President. The question which was asked from that side of the chambers on freedom of the press really touched me. And the man did a little bit of research, the distinguished senator, going back to 2005, when I was the first to bring a bill of Freedom of Information Act into the Lagos State House of Assembly, and did a public hearing, and it's all on record. And that exactly signposts my own deep convictions about press freedom in this country. Having been a practitioner, I am still a practitioner, because we have an aphorism in journalism that once a reporter, you are a reporter for life. And so I remain a reporter. And so the ideals, the tenets, the principles, the norms, and the mores of that profession, I am one of those who uphold it, who will uphold it assiduously with every sinew in my veins to make sure that press freedom is sustained in this country. However, to every privilege, there are responsibilities. I am not advocating an absolute press freedom without responsibilities. And I had a cause to say to some group of media men just a few days back that those of us who are gatekeepers, editors, managing directors, and all that, the gatekeepers have an onus on them. It behoves on them to regulate whatever comes out for the sanity of our society, because information is power. When information is irresponsibly purveyed, it can lead to cataclysmic events and destruction, chaos, social anomaly in the society. So I am very, very vehement on responsibility aspect of the press, and I will uphold it to the very last atom of my breath. Thank you.
I love to say Dele Alake. We have watched you over the years. We don't have any doubts about your capacity to handle any portfolio that your boss and our dear president may decide to endow you with. So we are happy with the enlightenment that you have received from the Senate and the enlightenment that you have also given to us. You may now take leave of the Senate. Next nominee, please. Mr. Nominee, Professor Ali Pate. Yeah. Distinguished colleagues, we have before us another nominee of Mr. President, Alhaji Mohammed Idris. Welcome to the hallowed chambers of the Senate. If you have something to add to your CV or a summarized version of your resume, you may do so and thereafter answer a few questions from the distinguished senators. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Excellency, the President of the Senate, Your Excellency, the Deputy Senate President, and other leadership, members of the leadership of the Senate, distinguished senators. This is an uncommon privilege to be nominated by Mr. President to offer services to our great nation. Let me place on record my sincere appreciation to the President of Nigeria and to members of the National Assembly for this very rare opportunity. As mentioned, my name is Mohammed Idris. I was born in May of 1966 in Katsina, but I am from Naija State. My father is a Nupe man, and I'm also from a Nupe man from Naija State, from Bako local government. Because my father was in the public service, we went around this country And therefore, my primary education happened in so many cities across Nigeria. But I finished at Central Primary School, Kwantagora, went to Government Secondary School, Rijau, finished in 1982, went for some remedial course at Zungeru College of Advanced Studies in Bida, Naija State, and then proceeded in 1983 when I got admission as an undergraduate student at Usman Danfodio University, University of Sokoto, now Usman Danfodio University. I had a pre-degree program there, a special pre-degree program that lasted 1 year. And then I was enrolled as an undergraduate student at the Department of Modern European Languages. I took a degree in English in 1987. And by the special request of my university, I was asked to stay behind as an NYC member in the same university. Therefore, from being a student around August of 1987, I became a pupil lecturer, so to say, in the same university, teaching English and communication skills to undergraduates. This was a special request made by my own university at that time. After the NYSC, I was also given a part-time job before my full-time appointment as a lecturer. But before that happened, the Federal College of Education, Katsina, sought my services to also come and help to consolidate the Department of English and Communication Arts in Federal College of Education, Katsina. So I moved there. I started work there in January of 1989. And after a few years, I became also a postgraduate student at Bayero University, Kano. There at Bayero University, Kano, I had the privilege of also teaching some undergraduate students English and communication skills at Bayero University. This lasted up until 1994. Upon graduation, after my master's degree, I came back to Federal College of Education, Katsina, but I didn't stay long because I had a different passion. I had a passion to teach and inculcate communication to the minds of especially people in the public service. I realized at that time that there was this communication gap between members of the civil service and the Nigerian public, and so I picked special interest in that. I attended some courses in that regard, went to various call centers in Nigeria and overseas, and I specialized as a corporate communications consultant. After that, I set up one of the first corporate communication companies in northern Nigeria, and still existing. This was around 1995 rather. Our clientele included government establishments, the organized private sector, and so many others. Now, communication, because it is so dear to our dear nation, formed the bedrock of my belief and my passion, because I felt that without communication, there couldn't be anything. Without proper communication, there couldn't be any meaningful development. And therefore, I emphasize on the role of communication in the development of our dear nation. My company, like I said earlier, had so many clients across government and the private sector. In 2003, I set up the first publication dealing with business and economy in northern Nigeria. It was called The Market. It debuted in 2003, and it continued to be in the newsstand until around 2011. when we thought that we should expand that and establish a broader newspaper. It is called Blueprint Newspaper. We established Blueprint Newspapers in 2011, and since then has become one of the most respected national dailies in this country. I want to state, Your Excellency, Mr. President, that Blueprint Newspaper is one of the first newspaper to break the story of Boko Haram, and especially the bombing of the police force headquarters at that time. Even when the Nigerian police was giving some information about those who they thought were responsible for that bombing, because we decided to get some journalists to embed themselves at the, with the terrorists at that time, we were able to get first-hand information that was useful for the Nigerian government in tackling the menace of that insurgency. I recall that the international media were quoting Blueprint newspapers because we are giving the most incisive information about Boko Haram at that time. That newspaper is still there, and it is running up until this time. Again, I established a radio station. It is called the We FM. Actually, it was in existence, but with a different ownership. But I bought into it, revived it, and it's now one of the leading voices, one of the leading FM stations in this in Abuja here. Again, Blueprint newspapers, because the President of Nigeria, then President Muhammadu Buhari, graciously gave us a license to float a television station. I want to say it, distinguished senators, that Blueprint newspaper has established that, but we are doing some trainings now, and in the next 2 or 3 months will be on air. It's going to be one of the biggest television stations in this country. Distinguished senators, I also had a stint in the construction industry. Around 2008, I set up a company that went into construction and real estate development in Nigeria. The success of that perhaps led Mr. President Muhammadu Buhari, to nominate me and subsequently appointed me as chair of the Abuja Property Development Company. That company is government owned. Before I took over, it was almost moribund, almost bankrupt. But when I got there in 2008, I made sure that as a board chair, I made sure that company was resuscitated. And I'm happy to report that today the APDC is one of the best private companies owned by government in this country. Of that success, again, Mr. President reappointed me this year into that board. Of course, all the boards have now been dissolved. Mr. President, I am a member of the International Press Institute. I helped to bring the international media to this country in 2018. It was the first time that the cream of editors from all over the world converged on Abuja to hold what they call the annual Congress of the IPI. It is one of the most prestigious media organizations in the world. Again, Mr. President, I am a distinguished member of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations. At some point, I was chair of the Institute in Kaduna chapter. I also became a fellow. I'm a member of the African Public Relations Association and the sitting Secretary General of the Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria. I'm also a member of the American-based Online News Association. Distinguished senators, like I said, I'm Mohammed Idris, a teacher, a public relations consultant, a media entrepreneur, and an investor in the real estate and construction industry. Thank you very much.
let's start with the Sioux Senator Wadada.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sitting as chair, distinguished colleagues. I am Senator Ahmed Wadada Aliyu, Sarkin Yakin Kefi, representing Nasarawa West Senatorial District of Nasarawa State. I still remain a horse rider. The nominee before us is very well known to me, and his resume and short presentation, verbal presentation about himself also tell us the much we should expect from him. First and foremost, for socio-economic growth and development of any nation, the education and enlightenment level of such a nation plays a very fundamental role. The nominee before us has been a great contributor to the educational and enlightenment of the citizenry, having played the roles he had played over the years, which of course is or are all contained in his resume and what he said. Again, the private role he played is also cannot be wished away, because the private sector in contemporary economic development is supposed to be the main driver of economic development. Government only plays the role of providing enabling environment, and he has played over the years as a private sector player, contributed greatly to the socio-economic development of Nigeria from the resume and the verbal presentation he has made about himself. My dear colleagues, it is time that we put round peg in round holes. The nominee before us has the requisite competence to be a member of the Federal Executive Council under the government of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, having known, it is well known to us, the commitment of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu to turn around the fortunes of Nigeria. And that's why the renewed hope is today at hand. I think the nominee before us in all ramifications fits into the sphere or the cycle or the confinement of the renewed hope. So I call on us to give him the needed support so that we screen and eventually confirm him to be a minister under the present administration. Thank you, my colleagues.
Very distinguished colleagues, I'm sure the President took cognizance of all the qualities enumerated by distinguished Senator Wadada before nominating him. So I'll prefer that we go straight into questions so that the nominee can answer the questions and then and take leave of the Senate. Distinguished Senator Garuba.
Thank you very much, the Senate President and my distinguished colleague. Mr. President, the nominee is known to me. We went to the same secondary school. He was my junior, and he has performed very well. But despite that, just like other people have said, we are presented among the best candidates, and I would want to take the first question. Mohammed, you are an entrepreneur and a communication consultant. Today we have unemployment in this country. Nigerians, some of them have graduated 10 years without jobs. There is misinformation in the country. I've been receiving requests from my constituency that I must make recommendations for them to get jobs. We want to see what you could do differently to make Nigerians believe in the system, that the system, if you actually work hard and you are qualified, that the system will give you that opportunity without knowing the senator, without knowing the minister, and we want to give that Nigerian that confidence. How can we achieve that? Thank you very much.
Thank you, distinguished Senator Garba. In other words, equal opportunity to the child of the farmer and the child of the senator. And secondly, to avoid people graduating and going back home to unemployment for years, sometimes between 5, 7, 10 years. What can the nominee bring to the table by way of initiative to create more employment opportunities for Nigerians? I think that's the summary of your question. Senator Zam.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Dr. Titus Zam. I represent the dynamic people of Benue Northwest Senatorial District. Mr. Nominee, from your presentation, you come from the mass media profession. And one of the pillars of democracy is an informed citizenry. Are you satisfied with the quality of reportage of governmental activities in Nigeria? And if yes, I'd like to ask, how much is the Nigerian citizen aware of the programs of the present administration? If your answer is no, what can you do to improve on the quality of governmental information that reaches the Nigerian grassroots? Thank you very much.
Thank you, distinguished Senator Zam. For instance, he achieved a lot under the Abuja Property Development Company. But I wonder how many people in Sokoto and Borno know about Abuja Property Development Company. So you are saying that, you are asking whether he's satisfied with the repertoire in respect of governmental policies, because a lot of people may not even partake in government programs if they are not even aware of those government programs. Let me ask distinguished Senator Shehu Buba Umar.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sitting as the chair, distinguished colleagues, my name is Shehu Buba Umar, representing good people of Bauchi South. Mr. Nominee, let me start by congratulating you. Listening to your presentations and going through your CV, you, as an English teacher and also a pioneer of various media outfits, such as Blueprints and FM stations. So if my question is, if being confirmed by these hallowed chambers, what are you going to do to, before then, I know you are aware of our famous Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria, known as FRC in Kaduna. When we were growing in the late 70s and 80s, is the famous radio stations that 19 northern states rely upon, which I believe you believe in that. And now, I believe you are also aware that the nature of FRC in Kaduna is virtually in a state of comatose. All the machines and tools are obsolete. Going by your experience in the media outlet, if eventually confirmed by these hallowed chambers, and eventually Mr. President appoint you the Minister of Communication, what will you do to reorganize, rejuvenate, and bring back life to our famous FRC in Kaduna? Thank you, sir.
Distinguished Senator Biggie.
Thank you, Mr. President. I remain in Piggy Baranada. Mr. Nominee, about 41 years ago, you attended your secondary school and obtained a GCE. But the document before us here is just a statement of result. There is no certified statement of result gotten from WAEC or the Examination Council. How can you prove that to the Senate that this statement of result is free? Thank you.
Yes, distinguished minority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, our dear nominee, congratulations. Mr. President, I remember the good days of this program that talks of good people, good nation, and it was meant to put Nigeria in good light, to showcase Nigeria to the world that all about Nigeria is not about criminality and crisis and so on and so forth. As a media practitioner, sir, do you think the media, since that time till now, have portrayed Nigeria in good light to the world? I had the opportunity to study in Germany for about 4 years, and I know there are bad things that happen in Europe and any other country in the world. But you will not see this from their media, telling the details of everything that is inimical to the growth and development of their country. But the reverse seems to be the case in Nigeria. Do you think that the media in Nigeria have portrayed Nigeria in their reportage in good light? Or you also have the blueprint? I like that paper, I've been reading it. And how do you think, if you are given the opportunity to serve in this government, how do you think you will use the media and your own media stations, both the print and the electronic media, to portray this country in good light? Thank you.
Distinguished Senator Solomon Adiola Olamilekon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sitting as chair, Adiola Solomon Olamilekon, representing Ogun West Senatorial District in the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Mr. President, let me join another colleague of ours in congratulating the nominee as one of the intending minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Now, having listened to you and looking at your resume, it shows you are a video guru, aside being a teacher. And having been involved in media over the years, I know you will have one or two things to do with the Ministry of Information and Culture. Number one, are you satisfied
with the level of our information management as a country. Number two, the following agencies are under the Ministry of Information and Culture. One, the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation. Two, NTA. Are you satisfied with the way the issuance of licensing of radio stations are being carried out presently? Two, the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation have existed in federal government budgets. And the reason why is that they are capable of generating enough revenue to run their day-to-day activities. I want you to x-ray the current Nigerian broadcasting, the channels, the TVC, and all other TV stations of this world. Thank you.
Distinguished Senator Sani Musa.
Thank you, Mr. President, sitting as chair. I am Mohammed Sani Musa, representing Naija East Senatorial District. My distinguished colleagues, the nominee standing before us is a representative, a nominee representing Niger State, and that is our constituency. The three distinguished senators of the Federal Republic in this chamber can attest to the credibility of this nominee. The passion this nominee has in driving not only the youth of this country, but the whole Nigerian people in terms of attitude change cannot be overemphasized. As he stands, if you look at him very well, you will see a man of honor standing before you. He is the publisher of Blueprint newspapers. We are all politicians. We have seen what happened during the days of campaigns. But I can attest that there are newspapers that have excelled themselves not to be partisan, and they report as it is. It is not the making of the newspaper, but the brain behind the newspaper. I can also attest that he is in a position to create a brand strategy for this country that will give every one of us the image we so desire. He has been a member of so many international PR organizations. We don't need to always appropriate the meager resources we have. Well, we should be able to use the strengths of characters of some of the Nigerians we have like him to sell our image, to propagate our image to the international community. He is a mobilizer that can also give credibility by way of image to the policies that this administration or any other administration that will come in Nigeria, will roll out. He will be able to give that image so that there will be understanding. I'm happy that a lot of questions have been thrown to him, of which is far more capable in responding to them. This administration, especially Mr. President, His Excellency Aswaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, have shown that he has come to renew the hope of Nigerians. If you look at the age bracket of the people he has nominated for ministerial position, these are people that will not only introduce the policies, but they are also going to be the ones to implement these policies. The energy is there, and I believe Mohammed Idris is one individual that will be able to rally even among his colleagues in the cabinet when formed, and whichever responsibility given to him, I believe is not only information that he'll be able to manage. Mohammed Idris can go into any portfolio, can do his best to any portfolio of responsibility given to him in this country. So I stand on behalf of three of us to appeal to my fellow distinguished colleagues to see reason after he has responded to appeal to Mr. President to allow the nominee a leave of the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you.
Our esteemed nominee, you may now answer the questions.
Thank you, Excellency, the Senate President. The first question, I believe, is from distinguished Senator Garba, my senior in the secondary school. He asked about unemployment and what I can do differently to ensure that Nigerian youths are gainfully employed. Well, this is not a task for government alone, and I have demonstrated that in my business practice. Distinguished President of the Senate, I'm employing over 200 people now. Over 100 of them are Nigerians, and 100 of them are Nigerian graduates, those who have, obtained degrees from Nigerian universities. Now, what that tells me is that once an enabling environment is created, it is possible for most of our youth out there on the street to be gainfully employed. That's number one. Secondly, it is also important that policies formulated by government should encourage participation by the private sector. Only in so doing can opportunities be created so that those our youth that are out there in the street would now be taken out of the street. So first, private sector people have to be encouraged to employ people, and the only way that can that those our youth that are out there in the streets would now be taken out of the street. So first, private sector people have to be encouraged to employ people, and the only way that can be done is by creating the enabling environment for private sector to thrive. There is no way that government will continue to employ people. I think the era of thinking that government is the employer of all members of the Nigerian public is over. And if you look at the policies that the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is already formulating, the mere fact that about ₦1 trillion has been saved and is going to be plowed back into the economy will mean that there is going to be more private sector participation, and this will in turn stimulate private sector growth that will also be an enabler for employment for our teeming youths. The second one is from the distinguished senator from Benue South. He asked about whether we are satisfied with the level of information that the Nigerian citizenry is getting. Well, I don't think we are satisfied, and I think that this is one of the things that we should strive to improve. Unless credible information is being put out there for Nigerians to consume, there will always be room for rumor. There will always be room for misinformation that may lead to fake news and all kinds of things. I will give an example. Because there was this intense agitation, intense anxiety, I should say, for ministerial lists to get to the Senate. So many, because it hadn't come, and the information flow is a bit limited. So many Nigerian youths that are staying idle there were formulating their own list and sending to the members of the public. I have myself seen not less than 7 lists. Only one of them had my name suggested in that. But as somebody who has some experience and some expertise in how news, credible news is sourced and disseminated, I know that most, if not all of those lists were actually mere fabrication. But it's important and it is pertinent that government must provide credible information to Nigerians. That is the only way that the transparency and accountability that government is upholding on will always be guaranteed. The more you uphold, the less you are trusted. And we have this in communications parlance, that 50% of the execution of any government project is actually in the communication. So if you don't communicate, people don't get to know what is it that you are doing about. I will cite an example with this Harrow Chamber. This is one of the most reported arms of government. What we are doing here now is being beamed across Nigeria and across the world. Now, what that means is that Nigerians are able to judge on their own the quality of the nominees, the quality of the questions, and the responsibility of the Nigerian Senate itself in ensuring that there's credibility in the process that in turn lead to a credible formation of a cabinet that we'll all be proud of. So I feel that we need to do more as Nigerians, and if I'm part of the government, I feel that I will also help to ensure that communication flow is absolutely important, not just in the newspapers, over the radio stations and the television. There is also the responsibility that we have to ensure that all our digital assets that are being used to misinform Nigerians are looked at again, improved on. For example, most of the information we get through the WhatsApp, through Facebook, through Twitter, and all of that, TikTok and all of that. Now, if you're not careful, the tendency is for you to consume anything you see on these digital assets as credible information. But they are not. But we need to do so much to regulate that. It's not something that we can insulate ourselves from. This is a problem that happens all over the world. Like I said, I'm a member of the Online News Association, based in the US. And I know that at every conference that we go to, every country, including America itself, is complaining about fake news. So what do we do with these digital assets? What kind of regulation do we put in place? How do we use that to promote credible flow of information amongst Nigerians? And I think this is very, very important. We try to do same during the campaign. Because if you observe, for those of you in the APC, I served as the Director of Strategic Communication for the campaign. And I know that we use digital assets to promote the manifesto of the party. I think it is important that we need to do that. I'm not as satisfied as we should be. I think things can be better, and we have a collective responsibility to ensure that that is done for peace, for unity, and for the progress of our dear nation. Now, this is tied to the report of government programs. Now, when I began my career, I mentioned here that I left government service as a lecturer in 1995. One of the first things I did was the creation at that time of official newsletters in both English and Hausa for many local governments in Katsina, where I was based at that time. It was a first, and they were using that to get even international attention. We made sure that they circulated these newsletters to development partners that were present in Nigeria. At that time, of course, the use of the internet was a bit limited, but physical copies were being represented. So we can do more of that. Government agencies should be encouraged to tell Nigerians the bulk of the information they have at their disposal. In any case, this information is meant for Nigerians and therefore should not be kept at bay. The senator from Bauchi South asked about FRCN, Kaduna, and then it's also tied with what the distinguished senator from Ogun West also talked about. Are you satisfied with the way the agencies under the Ministry of Information, the MBC and the NT and all that? Now, what I would say is this. I think that the FRCN and NTA are doing a great job, but they can do better. And the way they can do that is by ensuring that they resort to technology. Pay attention to new technologies that will ensure that information flows. If you look at NTA, for example, if you put it on, despite the fact that it has one of the best brands in this country as far as reportage is concerned, if you look at the quality of the pictures, and then you switch and go to other private ones, people will not be encouraged to get themselves glued to the NTA. So there must be some form of investment in, again, the digital assets. And not just in the projects. When I mean investment, not just buying the equipment, ensuring that those who are going to man this equipment are properly trained and retrained, because technology is such that if you stay in one position for too long, for more than 6 months, you find yourself obsolete. You need to move and evolve with time. So that should be done. Now, there is a particular thing I want to talk about, especially concerning the MBC. I think that the MBC, that is the regulator of broadcast in this country, need to really move more with the time. For example, the fees that the MBC requests that private owners of radio, TV pay before they can air their programs need to be reviewed downwards. If, for example, somebody wants to invest in a television station and is asked to pay 250 million naira, this is even before you buy any asset. You are requested to pay 250 million naira. Where do you get the funding to now begin to do the rest of the investment? But the regulatory part of them, I think they are doing very well, and they need to strengthen that. Now, someone also asked, distinguished senator asked about the issuance of licenses. Licenses come with responsibility. Today, there are over 1,000 licenses that are issued. And many of the people that get this license are politicians like us. You get this license, and then you put them in your bag, and you go and lock it up somewhere in your house. How does that contribute to information dissemination? Why did you get that license in the first place? Only 50% or even less of the licenses granted by the federal government are actually in operation today. Only less than 50%. So where are the rest? I think that there should be some regulation, tighter regulation to ensure that you must first of all be a practitioner or a genuine investor in the media industry before such licenses are granted. I think we need to do that and then control the proliferation. Now, what I mean about proliferation is not that every other radio or TV station that is there is not doing well. Specialized licenses ought to be given for specialized audiences. I think the MBC should take note of that. I am aware that they are already doing that for example, the Nigerian Police, the Federal Road Safety Commission, and a few government agencies. But I think they need to do more of that so that people can rely on such platforms. And distinguished Senator from my state, thank you for your kind words. I feel humbled that you find me so worthy, the three of you, for your esteemed consideration. I thank you for your kind words, and I oppose you.
The nominee must congratulations in advance. You have answered the questions, and we are quite impressed. So you may now take leave of the Senate. Next nominee, please. Distinguished colleagues, if we're following our list, I was expecting Professor Ali Paten, but I think we have Dr. Latif Fagbemi, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Am I right? So we will take the nominee that the Senior Special Assistant to the President brings into the chambers. But next time, let's try and follow the list as stated in our order paper. But nevertheless, I welcome Latif Fagbemi, Senior Advocate of Nigeria from Kwara State. Oh, I know why now. He is accompanied by the Chairman of Nigerian Governors Forum and Governor of Kwara State. I think it's in chambers. You're welcome. And it's also accompanied by a legal luminary and one of Nigeria's best, Chief Wale Olani Pegun, chairman of this, chairman of that, body of benchers and all that. We are delighted to have you in the Senate. We have Madam Yusuf Ali, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. We have Charles Edoswan, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. We have Adeni Yakin Chola, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. We have Afolabi Fashanu, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. We have Hakim Afolabi, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. We have Aliu Sarki, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. But above all, the Chairman of Nigerian Governors Forum, His Excellency the Governor of Kwara State. I can see him seated there, so we recognize you especially. Our colleagues will do well to get back to their seats so we can continue with the serious business of screening these nominees for appointment to serve humanity and rescue the federal government of Nigeria. Mr. Nominee, welcome to the Nigerian Senate. We have your resume before us. Give us just a summarized version of this resume, and if there's anything you think you want to add that is not contained therein, you can do so. The floor is yours.
The Senate President, the Deputy Senate President, the Leader of the Senate, the Chief Whip, Deputy Chief Whip, distinguished Senator Lola Ashiru, that's the senator from my constituency, distinguished senator and my friend, Mustafa Lituraki of Ilorin. The Senate President, I have no intention of personalizing the proceedings here, but please permit me to also say that to greet Senator Buhari, they are from Oyo because I came from Oyo from practice there, Senator Yunus, and my very good friend, Senator Sarafa Ali. That said, I will just veer off and say Senator Adigmomiri because he's a senior advocate of Nigeria. My name is Latif Olasunkomi Fagbemi. I was born third into a family of 5 at number 38, Lagos Street, Ebute-Metta, Lagos, on the 16th day of July, 1959. Around 1962, I was taken to Ghana but returned in 1965 to start what we call kindergarten, but eventually started my primary school in 1966 at Ansarudin Primary School, Ilorin. I was there until 1972. In 1973, between 1973 and 1978, I attended both Offa Grammar School and Offa Grammar School, Offa, and Oyun Baptist High School, Ijagbo, for my secondary education. I then moved to Kwara State College of Technology, School of Basic Studies, to do my higher education certificate under the supervision of University of Cambridge. I finished from there and went to University of Jos between 1981 and 1984. I then got to the Nigerian Law School in...
Yes, I pay with my credit card and then Melio sends you a check or a bank transfer, your choice.
When I built this business, we didn't have payment solutions like Melio.
Did my youth service in Ibadan in 1985, that is between 1985 and 1986. I then went back to University of Ife, as it then was, for my master's degree. Since then, I've been in active legal practice. I trained under that world-renowned jurist turned educationist, Chief Afe Babalola. Like I said, since then, I've been in active legal practice. The Senate President, this is the short resume of the candidate standing before you. Much obliged.
Well, I can see so many hands up. So let's keep the hands down. And then we'll give a lot of people the opportunity to ask questions. Because if you meet him in court, he will do the same to you. He will ask you questions. And let's get somebody from his state first, who may come up with accolade, because I suspect that. So unless the person has a question to ask, before we go into the real business of asking questions. Distinguished Senator Salim Mustafa, Kwara State, you have the floor.
Your Excellency, the Senate President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Salim Mustafa, representing Kwara Central. Before you here, you have an accomplished lawyer who needs no further introduction, and that is why you saw so many hands are up. I'm sure they've indicated interest to also shower him with a lot of accolades. I'm sure not questions. He is a lawyer who has paid his dues in the industry he chose. He was a lawyer at 26, became a senior advocate of Nigeria at 37. And from his brief explanation now, or intro, he told us he served under the renowned Afe Babalola, turned educationist now. I have closely studied the senior advocate of Nigeria, Lateef Fagbemi, to be one of the few senior advocates of Nigeria who take pride in whatever he does. He is a very humble person by nature. He takes his time, he listens very well, and he will give you the necessary advice and guide, even when you don't consult him for legal engagement. He is one of the few lawyers who I believe sometimes, will do what other lawyers will not do. Give you a free of charge consultation. Pro bono. I am really proud and elated that he is from Kwara State. He is one of the leading lights in the legal industry in the country. And I know if confirmed by this Senate, he will not only do this Senate proud, but the country and the president for nominating or appointing him as a minister. So I would wish that he will maybe help the Senate in one or two areas, especially in enlightening or broadening our minds in certain issues that might have been reoccurring decimals when it comes to legal explanation of maybe jurisdictions of certain areas. I'm proud to have him as a nominee from Kwara State. Like I said, I know he will do the country a very great deal of experience. I mean, he will give the country a very great deal of experience in his chosen profession. And I'm sure when we encounter him next time, we will be encountering a minister of justice who will always work with the Senate if confirmed. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, dismissed Senator Mustafa is more or less confirming that the Kwara caucus has no objection to this nominee. And so I think that was important for me. But maybe since there is another very ranked senator from Kwara, Senator Sadiq, you may wish to add something before your governor penalizes you that you said nothing.
Thank you, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues. I am Sadiq Sulaiman Umar. I represent the good and decent people of Kwara North and OR. Mr. President, we are very proud of the nominee. And as my colleague said, as you see him standing there, if you look, you might not see a giant. But when you look at, when you can get into his head, his mind, he is a giant. Mr. President, well, the nominee is someone that is well known, and his values are that of humility, discipline, commitment, and empathy. And this is what we need to be able to achieve the renewed hope government that we are trying to establish. Mr. President, I would have said that this legal luminary should take a bow and go, but you know, it's a product we are so proud of. We are happy that he's asked questions. And in fact, I will encourage my colleagues to do that by also asking a very simple question. Mr. Nominee, congratulations. The simple question I have for you is the usual thing that goes on in this country, where most people seem to have this misconception asking a very simple question. Mr. Nominee, congratulations. The simple question I have for you is the usual thing that goes on in this country, where most people seem to have this misconception of government, or the three arms of government. The truth is that there is one single federal government in Nigeria, headed by President Ahmed Bola Tinubu. The three arms are separated for just checks and balances. But they must work collaboratively, respectively, and synergize to be able to deliver the key objectives of what the government needs to deliver to the people. My question is, how would you relate with the National Assembly to ensure that this synergy is maintained respectfully without compromising the separation of powers? Thank you.
This distinguished senator, I just want to, I'm moving from his place of birth. I may not touch Ghana, but I will touch Oyo. Distinguished Senator Sharafadin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, I remain Sharafadin Abiodun Ali. I represent the group people of Oyo South Senatorial District. I can say that the nominee for us today resides in my senatorial district and has been attested to him by himself. He recognized the three of us who are from Oyo State. He is somebody I've known for over 35 years. And the distinguished colleagues, for this caliber of people to accompany our nominee here shows the kind of person, the giant, as said by the distinguished senator, that he is. He is a person who I sincerely believe is going to add value to the efforts of Mr. President in his renewed hope agenda. I know that he can answer our questions. Not only answer the questions, but answer them intelligently. But I do not believe in belligerent issues because he is the first nominee here that will be accompanied here by no less than 7 senior advocates and the state governor. I plead with distinguished colleagues that the nominee, after stating his resume, be asked to take a leave of the Senate. Thank you, Mr. President. Why not? Why not? Yes.
Distinguished colleagues, Senator Yisha Ashiru Oyorola,
Mr. Senate President, Senator Ashiru Oyorola, these are all put together. The nominee for today, I will want to start by expressing our gratitude to Mr. President for deeming it fit to nominate him as a Minister of Federal Republic of Nigeria. I don't want to overemphasize what has been said about him. I will go a little bit micro. And what I mean by that, I don't want to talk too much about his legal prowess because it's well known to all of us. He has consulted in so many states of federation, more than 15 or 18 by the last count. And he has provided legal services to so many parastatals, agencies, and corporate bodies. So in terms of law, his competence is definitely not in doubt. But I want to talk about the person I know. He doesn't want to be called a prince. But Mr. Lateef Fagbemi is not just a prince of Ijago, he's a prince of Ife. Of recent, he lost his father, who was the king of Ijago, at a very ripe age of almost 110 years. And I'm very sure he will live to surpass that age because of his demeanor. People die quickly out of anger. When you look at the nominee for today, you will never see any anger in him. He has a total control of himself. He has a total control of his environment. And he has been good to all of us. He has been good to all of us in our senatorial district. From what I know about him, he has invested more than 350 million in helping schools around our senatorial districts. He's a total family man, not just a micro family. The whole town is Alhaji Fagbemi's family. But I would not want to end by not asking a question, because there are so many things that are germane in the office is going to occupy. One, Alhaji Fagbemi is not a politician. In fact, in most cases, he wants to draw a distance from partisan politics. But I want to say, Mr. Senate President, I want to advise the nominee that the new position he's taking today as an index of politics. There have been interaction with the Senate. There have been supervision from Senate committee here. You must be able to enlarge your mind and be able to take them in. The essence of it is that we are all working to make Nigeria a better place. Mr. President, the other area we want to touch is area a little bit outside law, at the same time still related to law. There are a lot of conflict, communal conflict, everywhere in Nigeria, especially on land matter. And particularly, it's so common within the Eastern Bloc, the Southern Nigeria, and Central Nigeria. I will want to mention a little bit. There were issues of Ife Modakeke, there are issues of Saragi Sare in our own domain, and there are issues of Ilu Obu and Ifan, even in town belonging to Chief of Army Staff. And equally, I want to mention too that in my own locality, the issue of Anerele. I want to ask you, how do we get a settlement without going to court or without brother and brother going to war? Thank you, Mr. President, for allowing me to take my seat.
Thank you, Mr. President, and very distinguished senators. Mr. President, I earlier raised a point of order 12, to enable us to suspend rules to changes into the Senate. At this point, Mr. President, my point of order is order 12(1)(I). Order 12 sub 1(I). It's actually an invocation. I'm invoking this order to enable us admit. Thank you, sir. I have your permission to read, and I will read order 12. Distinguished colleagues, order 12 sub 1 Roman figure I. Oh, sorry. Order 12, 1 says, no person shall be admitted to the lobby or the floor of the Senate while in session, except the following and only by consent of the Senate. Specifically, I refer to order I, former speakers and former deputy speakers of the House of Representatives. Mr. President, I move that we invoke this order to admit the immediate past Speaker of the Federal House of Representatives of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who currently is the Chief of Staff to the President and CNC, to deliver a very crucial correspondence from Mr. President. I so submit, I so move.
The Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I rise to second the motion moved by Leader of the Senate. I so second, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, the Section 12 of our standing orders had already been invoked and is already in force, but specifically Section 12(I) that allows former speakers and former deputy speakers of the House of Representatives to approach the chambers while in session. So a motion to that effect has been moved and seconded by the Minority Leader. Those who are in support of the motion say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The former speaker may now approach the chair.
Yes. Za mu yi taking nasu gobe kenan.
Good afternoon and welcome to the live coverage of the ministerial nominee screening by the Senate here at the National Assembly in Abuja. And as you can see on your screens right now, the Chief of Staff to President
Yes, Mr. Nominee, please resume. And we are through with the accolades. Can we now go into questions? The first question will come from the Chief Whip, after that Senator Baribe, and then we move like that.
My name is Senator Mohamed Alindume, representing Borno South. Mr. Nominee, I have a very important personal question to you on the issue of Unexplained Wealth Act and the Unexplained Wealth Order. For the country to move forward, we all admit that we must fight corruption, and that is one of the main problems in this country. In fighting the corruption, the government put in place so many institutions, EFCC, ICPC, police, and all that. But you will agree with me as a lawyer that it has not been effective. The fundamental reason is because of the constitutional provision which states that an accused is assumed innocent until proven guilty beyond reasonable doubt. Here is the challenge. You have somebody that has unexplained wealth. You cannot prosecute him to prove beyond reasonable doubt. And I guess that is the wisdom why in even developed countries like UK, there is the Unexplained Wealth Order, which I believe as a senior advocate, you know. And you know that the fight against corruption in this country cannot get anywhere if the burden of proof is placed on the prosecutor. In those countries, there is the Unexplained Wealth Order or Unexplained Wealth Act, and its practice, I understand by my research, over 20 countries, including US and UK, whereby you are asked to explain where you got the money to buy what is not commensurate with your income. I hope that the Unexplained Wealth Act or Mr. President himself will issue an executive order on unexplained.
Borgata's 20th anniversary celebration continues during the Roaring 20s giveaway. This July and August, 2,000 lucky players will win their share of $2
What is your position on that? As person that I know, religious, God-fearing, and also a patriot, and you are one of those that
and you have litigated very, I will say, landmark cases that has even changed, made us change the law here. I'm referring to Amechi versus INEC. And you have been known specifically as an advocate of rule of law and a strong supporter of constitutional democracy. What would your option be, assuming we confirm you and the president appoints you to where we all think you should go as the chief law officer of the Federation? What will your option be if the government you serve desecrates the Constitution and does not obey court orders? Thank you.
Off your mic. Is that a question? The question you are saying is if the government does what?
If the government does not obey court orders and the government desecrates the Constitution,
well, I have a problem with
because this matter affects all of us. For those of us who are in the manufacturing, we know the pain.
So much the rule of law will desecrate the Constitution. A government that swears to uphold the Constitution. So, because is there anybody that can help Senator Baribe to frame this question in a more respectable manner? Because this is preemptive. The government is not even up to 2 months old. And speculative, and you are saying if the government, previous governments that you saw, is what you should be talking about, not this government. This government is a corrective regime. And the government of Bola Ahmed Tinubu is out to change Nigeria. And it's a government that believes in the rule of law. And you are saying if the government desecrates. So please, that language should not be allowed. Please, Senator Adero, I believe we can handle it better. Please reframe it for him.
Thank you, Mr. President, sitting in the chair.
If we can handle it better, please reframe it for him.
Thank you, Mr. President, sitting in the chair. Distinguished colleagues, our respected nominee. Let me start by, first of all, congratulating him for being nominated to serve as
Minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Let me also start with the question asked by my distinguished colleague, my neighbor, Senator Abadibi. This government believes in the rule of law, and disobedience to court order will not be tolerated in any way, in any form. And if you find yourself to be assigned to the Ministry of Justice as Minister of Justice and the Attorney General of the Federation, would you tolerate a situation where court order is being disobeyed? Secondly, this is my own personal question. There is serious prison congestion arising from judges not being enough to deal with cases, particularly at the higher court. It is very common to see a person being detained in prison for over 4 years for an offense that shouldn't take more than 6 months, even if he's convicted. Our prisons all over Nigeria are like that. What would you do to decongest our prisons if you are appointed as Minister of Justice? Thirdly, there is a dilemma for removal of immunity, particularly for public officers like governors, deputy governors, president, and the vice president. We attempted removing it in the 9th Senate or in the 9th Assembly, but we couldn't succeed because we couldn't get enough support from the states. Would you subscribe to the view that immunity should be removed for public officers, particularly governors and president and vice president and deputy governors? Mr. President, I need your protection. I need your protection.
Distinguished colleagues, because of the number of hands, it will be good for us to restrict ourselves to one question, and so that others can have the opportunity to ask. And if there is any question you are not able to ask, please, the learned silk is available. Write it and pass it through the leader of the Senate. You will pass it to him, and we will still come back here to read it. Thank you, distinguished Senator Alero. Senator Alero, you enjoyed immunity for 8 years as a governor, and you did not complain about during your 8 years. You complained that you were enjoying immunity, and that when you were governor, the immunity should have been removed in order to allow your orderly to arrest you whenever there was a petition against you. Okay. Senator Naija, we'll come back to you. We'll come back to you. Senator Naija.
Thank you, Mr. President. My learned colleagues, I'm Neda Imaswen, representing the good people of Edo South Senatorial District. Learned Silk, welcome. I'm happy to have you here. Looking through your resume, we attended law school the same year, 1985. So I'm proud to have you here as one of us. My question, the office of the Attorney General and the office of the Minister for Justice
is woven in one. And I believe that there is a conflict of interest in that office as it is. If, by the grace of God, you are confirmed the Minister for Justice, will you support that office to be splitted into two so we can have the Minister for Justice and the Attorney General for the Federation separated so that they can perform their functions separately? Because as it is, their functions seems to conflict with the interests of the President and that of the people. What is your position on this, Leonard sir? Thank you.
Distinguished Senator Dankwabu.
Your Excellency, the question I want to ask is similar to what he asked. I want to ask if it is right to separate the office of the Attorney General of the Federation and the Attorney General of the federal government, as is being initiated and is being asked all the time. Accountant General of the Federation, Accountant General of federal government, Attorney General of the Federation, Attorney General of the federal government. Is it right? Does it give the President enough powers to perform his role on the economy and the justice system? That's my submission, Your Excellency.
We should give the nominee the opportunity to be heard.
I am very grateful. I'm very grateful. Let me start from the question posed by distinguished Senator Sadiq Umar, and I start on a note of apology because I should have mentioned him as one of the senators from my state. Unfortunately, the impression I had was that he was not around. That said, let me talk about the question he raised. It's about the relationship between the National Assembly and the Office of the Attorney General. I don't see any difference between this question and the relationship amongst the three tiers of government. The government stands on a tripod: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. And the French philosopher Montesquieu advocated the issue of separation of powers, rule of law, and others. But there is nowhere in the world where you have watertight separation of powers. It is the interest of the nation, the interest of the country that is paramount and will dictate how we relate, all for the good, betterment, and advancement of our nation. So, as Attorney General, if I find myself there, I cannot do without the National Assembly. I cannot do without the judiciary, but it has to be on certain defined parameters. That's one. Then my very good friend, Senator Sarafa Ali, I just want to thank you for the good things you said about me. Then my boss at home, and I say here, Senator Lola Ashiru, has asked that, well, because I'm not a politician, the Office of the Attorney General, with all respect, is supposed to maintain a modicum of independence. But that does not mean that you will not take into consideration the mood of the nation. So that is what is important, because it is the constitution, it is the law that I am expected to guide and guard, again, all in the interest of the nation. About this issue of land dispute and all that, my answer is going to be a two-pronged approach. The first one is, it is either a dispute between one state and another, or between one local government and another. In fact, three. The third one is within the same local government, you can have dispute as to land. But I'm aware that we have boundary commission. Whether or not we'll achieve harmony in respect of land matters depends greatly, or a great deal, on our governors, because very few instances of state clashes, interstate disputes arise. So it behoves the governor of a particular state to take the bull by the horn and not play politics with it. It's very important, because when election is coming, the issue is, oh, let me wait, otherwise I'm going to lose this election. So my advice is that it is the state governors that we turn to do the needful. At the local government, it is the local government chairman who should also take the bull by the horn. At the federal level, the president, the boundary commission, which is a body established or recognized by law, should swing into action. But my general advice is that it is better to nib these disputes in the bud as soon as you realize, or there is indication that's likely to be boundary dispute or communal dispute. I will advise the authorities to swing into action and not allow it to fester or get to such a magnitude that it will now be unmanageable. Now, in respect of the distinguished Senator Ndume on explained wealth, I want to discuss this under a broad head of corruption. It is only in Nigeria that we want to take omelette without breaking egg. It's not possible. But we must also realize that the whole purpose of the society, of the nation, of the country, of the group, any group, is to promote economic development. In fact, if you have an enabling environment for economic, for investment, you have little problem dealing with unemployment. But there cannot be this will not work unless you have an enabling environment in respect of legal, the legislation. Truth be told, we fight corruption, but at the same time, the way it is being fought in Nigeria leaves much to be desired. That is the truth. If I have my way, I will advise the president to unbundle. First of all, bring ICPC and EFCC together, unbundle them. Investigation should not be handled by the same body. There must be a supervisory authority within the same system. If there is investigation, it is another body. Prosecution is another body. It doesn't augur well to ask the same authority to, okay, do investigation, come and do prosecution. That is where we have problems. Then we are also not, let me say, patient enough. You know, investigation takes time, especially in serious corruption cases. Are we prepared to wait? My take is that a situation should be created, such as the one that happened in when Hush Puppy was arrested. They had been trailing him for years he didn't know, and nobody will talk to him. But the day they said the time was up, he also knew that the time was up. Investigation should be thorough. It shouldn't be that when a given governor leaves office, you now say, yes, let's go. EFCC is inviting you. That is not the way to prosecute criminal matters, corruption matters. You can take your time to prosecute, but when you knock, and it is like, it should be like the way an average American will, FBI, knock at the door. You call your lawyer, yeah, it won't be to come and defend. It will be, please, this negotiation, again, and prepare to surrender so much. Because when you open the books, you yourself will be surprised. Is that what we have in Nigeria? I will answer it with an outstanding no, negative. So, if you are ready, and it will involve, with respect, the National Assembly, make laws that will be good for the society without anticipating, oh, will this one affect me? I'm sorry, it's just time to say the truth. We have to put in place very good laws to do this. Then, apart from the issue of having good laws, I've always insisted that it is better to have even bad laws administered by good men than to have good laws administered by bad men. It is important that we do this. So, but the issue of, fair hearing, distinguished, we have to obey the Constitution. There must be fair hearing. You cannot condemn a man unheard. He's never done anywhere. We cannot be in a hurry because, we cannot say because we want to prosecute, then you now brush aside the age-long with the one that has started even during the time of Adam and Eve. We all know what happened. But make sure that investigation is thorough. And when we talk of investigation being thorough, we pump money there. We have to pump money there, unbundle the authorities. That has to be. Then, with respect on the issue of not obeying court orders, there is no government, especially the head, who will want to joke with the judiciary. It is those around him. In Nigeria, what we have, or which we have to pay attention to, is interagency rivalry. You have the EFCC, you have the SSS, you have other security, organizations. I think, with respect, you will not find the president flouting any order, because the Attorney General will invariably be made a party. The mere fact that an order is made does not mean that you should obey it immediately. You think about it, do I appeal? Do I, if I appeal, what do I do next? If I'm not appealing, what am I supposed to do? If I'm not appealing, of course, I cannot subject the order of court to any further test of validity. By Section 287, it has to be obeyed not only by the government, by every authority and presence in Nigeria. So the question of these, in the major areas where we have these disobedience of court order are between, with all respect, between these agencies. My advice would be that in matters of law, the Attorney General should be involved. DSS cannot be an island unto itself. EFCC cannot continue to, behave as if there is no law. There is law. And if you want to do investigation, you do investigation before inviting the accused person. It is not a question of inviting him and you say, we have caught a big fish. Then at the end of the day, you say you are investigating. So that also goes to the issue of the pace at which the cost of justice travels. It can be slow, but it's very sure. And I take example from what is happening in the United States. Trump has a 2024 appointment or date in court, believe me, some people will say, oh, 2024. No, that 2024, if God preserves our lives till and beyond that day, nothing will make them shift it, because thorough investigation would have been done. You do your investigation before arrest and not arrest before investigation. I'm grateful. Furthermore, now see that
distinguished senators, you can notice renewed hope in our judicial processes. So I will want you to just answer one question from me, and then you can step aside. The question I want to ask, I know you will go. The question I want to ask is, where you have courts of coordinate jurisdiction, courts that have the same jurisdiction, let me explain it that way, and then they bring out divergent judgments on the same issue, conflicting judgments on the same matter. A court in Yola will give judgment in the Federal High Court in Yola on the same matter. Another one in Port Harcourt will give a different judgment on the same matter. Another one in Warri will give judgment on the same matter. Another one in Kano will give judgment on the same matter. If God gives you the office of the Attorney General of the Federation, how will it bring sanity to bear? Because it tends to make people to lose confidence in the judicial system. That's number one, because I think something should be done where there should be judicial precedence. If there is already a judgment on a particular matter, we don't see how, in fact, in some instances, we have seen where the High Court sets aside Supreme Court decisions. By virtue of their decisions, Supreme Court has decided something on a matter, and then somebody will go to High Court, and High Court will decide something totally different without looking at the precedent already set by the Supreme Court. Don't you think that, how will you, if you have the opportunity, work hard to bring discipline and sanity to bear? That's one question. The other one is, most of the boundary crises you refer to linear problems that were caused by the creation of states. And local governments. Abia too. You have some villages in Akwa Ibom that were cut out of in the local government and placed in Aujut or Carlos in Bende or something in the next local government. So those village heads are confused whether to attend traditional institution in India. So that kind of boundary situation created from state creation, they exist in various parts of the country. Those things are very difficult unless you revisit the boundaries, the state creation act itself. You understand? So it's not something that one state governor can do. But as an Attorney General, what will be your advice? But you have more problems if we were to take you. We can't finish you in one day.
because to be very honest, we would like continuous interaction with you, even after the appointment, assuming you become the Attorney General of the Federation, because the issues are legion. Just proceed, answer to just those two issues, where judges of coordinate jurisdictions give divergent put their judgment on the same matter. What would you advise? And then, of course, perennial crisis of boundary disputes caused as a result of state creation and not the fault of the states themselves. What would you do in those two regards? Bearing in mind that some of these states were created in 1967 and they have been existing, and we have had attorney generals. So don't say that state governors should have. It means that they have failed, and this is your turn. What will you do differently?
Thank you, sir. I'll crave your indulgence to start from the second question on the issue of boundary dispute. I will say that this is not a legal matter. Rather, it is a political matter. I know that a number of factors influence the creation of states, local government, and all that. The chief among them are, one, the willingness of this community to live together, then socio-cultural togetherness. So if a wrong has been committed, I think it can be corrected by legislation. Yes. You can amend the Constitution if it is the Constitution. After all, you have amended about 4 or 5 times. This one we can collate where those things are. Ask those people, where do you want to be? Where they are going? Will you accept them? Are you ready to accept them? I don't think there is, as far as I'm concerned with respect, it's not a legal matter. Or if it is if law is involved, I'll say it's a political legal matter. You make up your mind as to what you do and fashion the Constitution along that line. One. Number two, in respect of conflicting judgment or decisions, it is unfortunate. We cannot close our eyes or deny that these exist. But I know that as far as the courts are concerned, they have been making efforts to, nip this in the bud. For instance, if you approach the Federal High Court today or High Court of Federal Capital Territory, you are to sign a document saying, I have not, filed any other actions, even similar to this, anywhere. If you, otherwise, your case will be struck out, will be dismissed. But this forum shopping, I know is still there. 3 people are involved. 1, the judge. 2, the lawyer, and the litigant. But you discover that most of the cases are political cases. They are political cases. Very few are non-political cases. On the part of the lawyers involved, I know that the long arm of the law, through the Legal Practitioners Disciplinary Committee, the body of benchers, will catch up with them if appropriate reports are made or they are brought to the attention of these authorities. For the litigants, well, there's very little we can do, but they can also be sanctioned. I will advise that, 1, we make full disclosure when we are approaching the lawyer to file a case. Because the lawyer is not a wizard, he's not a witch. He won't know whether any action has been commenced elsewhere. But by and large, I think we need proper reporting system of court judgment, especially where you have Federal High Court. We can, I think that can be sorted out, bringing it to the attention of the judge where it is known. It is not only here. For instance, there was a matter, well, let me avoid, because it's one of the matters that are sub judice. We know that it happens, it's occurring. How do we do it? Everybody has to call him or herself to order. For the lawyers, I have mentioned that the power of discipline of the legal practitioners disciplinary committee will catch up. The judge can also make recommendations towards the discipline of the judge. They are also of the lawyer. Then for the judge, the NJC will issue its power of discipline. But what we discover is that when this type of case comes up, the man who reported will now come when it is time to hear the matter and say that he's withdrawing his action. And if a man says he's withdrawing his complaint, there is very little remain for anybody to do in the circumstances. So these are my takes on the issue, sir. But for the Attorney General, his interaction with the National Assembly, with the judiciary is continuous. He has to answer as often as is needed, and on a humorous note, at no charge.
Well, you are used to giving advice without charges. So, let me thank the nominee, the Leonard Silk, Latif Wagbemi, SAN, for the elucidating answers to most of the questions, and then to also let you know that so many hands are still up waiting for you, but we can't keep you beyond this period now. So our intention will be that we will collect some of the concerns of the distinguished senators, and then the Senate leader will definitely present them to you, so that if God gives you the office of the Attorney General of the Federation, then you will also use those questions as working documents. Thank you for coming. You may now take leave of the Senate.
After an intense session there, Mr. Latif Fagbemi, SAN, makes his way out of the Senate chambers, bringing a number of nominees who have been screened by the Senate to 26. Remember, President Tinubu had sent a list of 28 names. 26 of those names have been screened, and we're hoping to see who comes in next for the screening process. And remember, if you're just tuning in, earlier we saw the Chief of Staff to President Tinubu make his way into this chamber with an envelope which he handed over to the Senate President. Speculations are that that envelope will be holding the names of more nominees from the President. The screening process is still live here on Channels Television at the Senate chambers of the National Assembly in Abuja.
Next nominee, please. Distinguished colleagues, before us is Professor Ali Patel. Prof, you were long awaited. We've seen your resume. So we'd like you to give us a summarized version of your resume and add anything that you think you would like the Nigerian public and this Hello Chamber to know about you. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Your Excellency, the President of the Senate, Your Excellency, the Deputy Senate President, leadership of the Senate, distinguished senators in these hallowed chambers, if I may call out my own distinguished senators from Bauchi State, my brothers, distinguished Senator Shehu Buba, Senator Abdul Ningi, and Senator Dr. Samaila Kaila, Kitel and Katagum. Good afternoon. It is with all humility that I stand before you this afternoon as a nominee to be minister in the Federal Executive Council. My name is Muhammad Ali Pate, and I was born on September 6, 1968. I'm very grateful that His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, graciously invited me and nominated me to be considered by this chamber for confirmation. It's a high honor that I'll be forever grateful to him for. I come from the village of Mainari in Misau local government area of Bauchi State. I attended my primary school at the Bakaro Primary School in Bauchi local government. And 73 to 79, I went on to Barrea College Zaria from 1979 to 1984 for my secondary education. In 1984, I went to Ahmadu Bello University to do my advanced levels and then went into medical school. I graduated from Ahmadu Bello University with my medical doctor degrees in 1990. After housemanship and National Youth Service, I went back to the Ahmadu Bello University Teaching Hospital as an assistant lecturer. I was very honored to have been recruited to work for the British Medical Research Council laboratories in the Gambia, where I started my international health career in February 1993. So it's 30 years now in international public health career. With the Medical Research Council, we did work on malaria, on malnutrition, on many other childhood diseases in those days. I went on to the United States to specialize in internal medicine and subsequently subspecialized in infectious diseases and was board certified by the American Board of Internal Medicine and Infectious Diseases as a physician who was also licensed in the United States. I studied health systems and pivoted to the World Bank as a development professional in 2000. At the World Bank, as a young professional at the World Bank and public health specialist, I worked in Eastern and Southern Africa on health reforms, HIV/AIDS, several countries in the region. I also worked in the District of Columbia in their own health reforms in the United States, seconded by the World Bank. I moved on to be senior health specialist and human development sector coordinator in the East Asia and Pacific region of the World Bank, where I was responsible for Papua New Guinea, Timor-Leste, Solomon Island, and many Pacific Island countries, based in Sydney, but covering the region. In 2008, I was acting sector manager for health and nutrition and population in the East Asia Pacific when the late President Umar Musa Yar'Adua, God bless his soul, invited me to come home and serve. I did not hesitate to come back and serve. I came on to be the chief executive of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency. And that was the beginning of a 5-year journey in the federal government. After 3 years, I was asked by His Excellency President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan to serve in his government, which I did. And in the 5 years that I served in government, we contributed, along with several faces that I see here and outside in this country, important things for this country. Polio was a major challenge globally, and Nigeria was at the heart of it. With all of you, with several other state governors, we were able to deal with decisively. We improved immunization. We developed a midwifery service scheme, developed a community health worker program, started to revitalize primary health care. President Jonathan asked me to be his nominee as the Minister of State in the Federal Ministry of Health. And this hallowed chambers confirmed me in July of 2011. I served until 2013, when I completed all that I had promised my president at that time, and moved on to teach comparative health systems at the Duke University Global Health Institute in Durham, North Carolina in 2013. I did that for 2 years until I became the Chief Executive Officer of Big Win Philanthropy, which is a UK and US-based philanthropy that was helping leaders in the continent of Africa who were interested in investing in human capital, who were interested in investing for the long-term growth of their countries. Following that kind of work, in July 2019, I was honored that the Harvard University assessed me and endowed a chair, the Julio Frank Chair Professorship in the Practice of Public Health Leadership in Boston, and took the unprecedented step of seconding me to serve as the Global Director for Health, Nutrition, and Population at the World Bank. I was Director of the Global Financing Facility through the period of the initial stages of the COVID-19 pandemic, and we contributed to several countries. Most recently, I was elected member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, and in fact, I was due to start my role as Chief Executive Officer of the Global Alliance for Vaccines Initiative in Geneva, Switzerland, tomorrow, August 3rd. His Excellency, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, I think has inspired this country. I think there's an opportunity to renew hope, to heal the country, to unite it, and to inspire it. When asked to come and contribute in my own country, I accepted, and I'm very grateful that you are giving me this privilege of standing before you. As a person, I've been married for the last 28 years to a wonderful woman who has been very tolerant of me, and we have 6 children, 4 girls and 2 boys. And the community that I come from has been very gracious in naming me the Chigari of Bissau, which is my traditional title in my own village, and the Enya of Ibi in Taraba State, in addition to other community leadership roles that I have had. I have also supported an organization that is a grassroots-based organization in this country for the last 8 years. It's operating in 19 states and the Federal Capital Territory, and it works with frontline community leaders. We've got 70,000 of them that have been trained through this organization that I have been supporting over time. So, Your Excellency, Mr. President, I'm here, humbly, standing before you, and ready to answer any questions that may be raised by members of this chamber. Thank you very much.
Distinguished Senator Abdul Dingi, on behalf of the good people of Bauchi State.
Mr. President, my name is Abdul Ningi, and I represent Bauchi Central of Bauchi State, and the nominee is my constituent. Mr. President, I have known the nominee all his life. I schooled in Misau, where he comes from, and his father was actually the reason why I studied in ABU Zaria. And his uncle, Wakila Audu, is a very close associate of myself. Mr. President, here you have one of our very best, not only in Bauchi State, but in Nigeria. This is standing before you is a global personality. We used to call him the star of our time. You have listened to him, and you have also perused through some of his resume. And Mr. President, let me, from the onset again, congratulate him and thank in abundance President Bola Tinubu for appointing people like him. Being a global player, he's not taking away from our nation. Rather, he's bringing in, just as he brought in a lot of goodies when he was the Minister of Health. Mr. President, you recall, as soon as the Senate read out the list of ministerial appointees, and if you have been watching the social media and the electronic media, from Arise to TVC to NTA to AIT to channels, every participant that comes before the channel names him as a minister to watch out for. That is because of his pedigree. I have no doubt Professor Pate has come to add value to our nation. Mr. President, even though you say I should speak for Bauchi, I will crave the indulgence of my colleagues, and of course the leave of the Senate President, to allow my two colleagues to say a word or two, particularly Dr. Kachala, who happens also to be a medical personnel and also served under the professor. Distinguished senators, here you have a brother, somebody that can be relied upon to deliver democratic dividends, most especially in health. We are backward, but his dream all the time is to see that Nigeria belongs to the Community of Nations that will one day serve all our health requirements here, not to travel outside. I'm sure with Professor Patti given the opportunity in the next 4 years, you begin to see Nigerians look inwards rather than outwards for the health requirement. Gentlemen, Professor Ali Fatih for you. Thank you.
Dr. Kachala.
Mr. President, my name is Dr. Samaila Dahua Kaila. Kachallan Katagum is my title. I'm a medical doctor, as my brother said. Actually, I'm a newcomer to the legislature. And when I came, I actually promised myself that I am going to at least stay for 2 or 3 months without saying anything in this chamber, just learning. But to, of course, until if the president called me to do so. Thank God he didn't. But today I have to break my silence and at least talk about Professor Fati. To be honest, in fact, I am in this chamber thanks to Professor Fati. I was working in Kano when Professor Fati called me and he said he wanted to talk to me. I said, okay. He now advised me to join politics. I was shocked because at that time I actually dreaded politics. But he said, no, join politics and you'll be a good politician. This is about 6 years ago, and a lot has happened. The rest is history. Today, I'm a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and Professor Fati is here standing to be confirmed by one of his boys. The only thing I can say, I thank God. What my brother Abdul Lingi didn't say about Professor Fati is the fact that he's not only a technocrat, he is a grassroots politician. It is very difficult to have this type of combination. But go to Bauchi State, call 3 politicians, Dr. Fati will be one of them. So he is not only a technocrat, he is a politician. I'm not going to talk about him because his resume is here. It's very, very intimidating, especially for us, the medical doctors. But I will only say, for those of us that are going to work with him, engage with him for the next 4 years, hopefully, this gentleman is very honest, but he is very, 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 let me call it thorough, and I put the word here, very passionate about